Aggie,
Can you
you're
hear us?
muted.
Maybe not.
Present. Sorry, I couldn't show up. I have a bad cold.
Okay, Aggie and then Nancy, we're doing roll call, please.
Nancy, you're muted.
Yeah, here.
Thank you.
So, we'd like to move to our minutes from last time, the November 18 meeting. Any feedback or regarding our minutes from our last week?
Set the meeting minutes. Second.
Thank you.
Yes.
I would ask people to speak up. I could barely hear you from here, so I don't know how they can hear.
Sure.
So I want to ask everybody to speak up, please.
Thank you. Okay, so,
Just a reminder, we were, you have to take a vote on the minutes, so you need to do a roll call vote.
yes,
Okay,
okay, thank you, Mark.
Joe Colombo, yes. Brian Farber, yes.
Andrea Conservada, yes. Rose, yes.
Jimmy Choo says yes.
Nancy Brown, yes.
Agnes, yes.
Thank you. So next, before we move to share updates, I know we're actively working on the commission charge right after that. So I do want to give the opportunity for public comment before as well as after. So, because you do have members of the community here with us today as well as online. So I do want to have a great space to open up for public comment at this time. If anyone wishes to share anything, speak.
Just for clarity, are you suggesting having public comments after the discussion before the vote on the charge, so people can respond to that?
We're gonna have it here, I think, right? And then again.
Yeah.
Both
Right
sides.
now.
Before we vote on the charge, will there be response from the community?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
We're gonna open up now for public comment, and then we have two places that we typically like to hold it.
Mhm.
And, just given the nature of what we're discussing and how much feedback comes, I want to be able to that as well. And if there is no public comment, there's, no pressure, that's absolutely fine, but I did want to create space for it if anyone wishes to share anything further while they're here. Okay, so we will move to chair's updates.
So,
Speak up slowly.
we've been working on the work plan we discussed during our last meeting. And the next steps for that is we're preparing like a little bit more formal document to hold a meeting with both our liaison, Mark, and Carrie, the town manager. So we could discuss that work plan with them. That's what we're putting together, and we're hoping we can do that in the next week. That would be my only update regarding the work plan we discussed. And just as a quick reminder about that, we signed up to lead some of the activities. And that's just will give visibility as to who's responsible to carry out and kind of lead each of them. So that's going to be, it will provide our plan with more structure. I'm going to say lots of structure, but more structure. And then my other update, we met with the school leadership. We're holding monthly meetings with them. And we're putting together, we discussed the importance of collaborating in different events, co-sponsoring events together, working together to put training sessions, workshops, seminars together. So we're discussing that. and the importance of being present, all of us, both the schools and us in the different events, cultural events, and DEI related events that are happening in our community. So we're working on that. And I did want to update you. That's like an active effort and an active discussion. So that's happening. We also learned during that meeting about an incident that was later discussed, I believe, during the school committee meeting, of a graffiti in the bathroom of
White power.
white power graffiti in the restrooms.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. So we do want to acknowledge, this recent, incident. Graffiti, at Concord Carlisle High School, and I know there was a brief mention of it during the school committee meeting, and there was a communication, to families in the community. But I know it's what we have, the contact we've received is certainly, it has still left, many feeling unsettled and unsupported. So what we're hearing is a clear need to have a space for dialogue, a space for healing, a clear pathway to address and prevent incidents such as this. And as part of our efforts with the DEI Commission, we want to be able to partner and to support in any way communication, which we appreciate how timely the communication around that matter came out, but specifically like how these matters are being addressed, being able to highlight more trauma-informed support, because we know this is, you know, these mounting incidents have been troublesome and really concerning. So as we look to, I know the town is evaluating obviously a stronger reporting and response process and procedures, but as these issues are ongoing in our community, you know, we're certainly looking for a facilitated community space for dialogue, healing, and accountability, and to really understand what that looks like as a community for us, because as we know, this harm is perpetuating. There are incidents that are occurring intergenerationally that are impacting leadership, you know, members of our community and so forth. So really, how do we come together? And what are those spaces? Where are those spaces? What does that look like in terms of timeliness and opportunities to us to have safe dialogue about how we address this really collaboratively as a community? So we as a commission stand ready to partner with larger members of our community, you know, ongoing work with our district leadership to ensure our student and family well-being, and to ensure that it's centered, and to move forward with care, clarity, and collective action. So with that, those are just some thoughts and updates on our end. I definitely wanted to open it up to members of the commission to see if there's any further thoughts, particularly on the matters raised or anything else before we go.
Well, I think we're gonna spend the majority of the time on the charge. So I wouldn't mind if there's time at the end after public comment to maybe go back to, so Jimmy and I were at and I know Mike was at the last hate bias work group. And I think maybe some of the issues that he just raised, to me, mentally tie back to this work about getting it more obvious, these incidents, so that more people in town are aware of it. So maybe we can return to it later in the agenda, because I have some thoughts, because I attended that school committee meeting and I've watched. And it connects, I think it connects, but I'd like to spend a little time on hate bias if we have time at the end.
I think it's important. I think it's important. So yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, I won't forget.
Okay. Come back to you, John. Any other thoughts, Jimmy or Ryan or Aggie? Yeah.
I guess, I mean, my only thought, and this has been in my head a whole long time now. A couple of years ago, Carlos did an incredible series of workshops and I went to all of them. And the work that we're doing is great, but the obvious thing that I want to say, because I'm being brave, because I see a button and it says push. None of these things really get resolved until we get more white men showing up. Carlos's thing was great. There was only one white male in the room the whole process. And I see this in a lot of the work. The women show up, but the white men don't. And I feel like at the same time, with this whole pushback on DEI, is mostly being pushed by white males feeling threatened. So until we address the elephant in the room of trying to get more gender balance, we're not really gonna get anywhere. I get so frustrated because I see the same thing. With Carlos, there was only one white male at this incredible series of workshops, and all the rest of it was women. So for me, the big thing is the power structure in our culture is unfortunately right now is controlled by the white male, that piece. And we're not getting enough people, white males, to show up to do this work. That's just really, I want to say that, I got to keep saying it, because for me, it's the elephant in the room. And until that's really addressed, I don't really feel like we get anywhere. You know, DEI, the I in DEI is inclusion. Inclusion really means everybody. It doesn't mean exclusion. It means we're trying to include everybody. And I think it's really important that we focus on that. It's the elephant in the room. How do we get more white males to show up to do the work? Until we do that, I don't really see anything changing.
So for those who may not know you, right, and for those who may not understand particularly where your lens, like the lens you hold and where you might be coming from, can you just share a little bit more about what you mean by white men? Is it the role of, is there a particular role or kind of lens that they hold that you feel like, can you just provide a little bit more context? Because for someone just hearing you say that,
Okay.
without really knowing,
The whole thing about DEI for me is the inclusion. Inclusion means everybody. And I feel like in the background that there are a lot of white males that feel they've been threatened by this work, that somehow they're not going to get their share. And that's like under the table, and it's not really hidden, but it's not really been addressed. It's about nothing really works for me until everybody feels safe. That's why I do this process called deep listening or council process, where everybody gets to speak and listen. And it takes time for people to get out of their head and to get into their heart and to speak their real truth. Also, it's about creating enough safety so people feel safe enough to come forward. And until that gender balance is more in sync, I look at this work that I've been doing for decades and just feel like I'm just running around in circles. So for me, the real impetus here is how do we get more white men involved and take that threat level down? Because I think a lot of it is people feel threatened by DEI. They feel like it means that, oh, they're going to take other people over me. No, it's inclusion about everybody. And I really feel that that's really important for me in all these years of doing this work. I don't see a lot of white men showing up. It means, look who's here now. Sorry, I don't have an answer, but I just want to put it on the table. I want to keep us thinking about how do we make it more safe for more people to show up.
In your experience, do you have any suggestions or have you seen any ways to bring?
Call it out for what it is. Keep calling and say, hey, we're wasting our time in some sense. So we get more, how do we get more white men to show up? You know, if they feel threatened, come and participate and understand what's going on. And that's for me is the real work. How do I get more, in my circles of where I play drums, my wife and I were activists for years to get women to feel safe playing drums. Now, if you look at any drum groups and stuff, there's a lot of women in, and it's moved miles ahead when we have that kind of inclusion. So speaking to the elephant in the room, and I don't have a solution. I just I think the first step is to bring it up, to acknowledge that this is what's going on. How do we change that?
And so I think what I'm hearing, Jimmy, is just really like people in positions of like privilege and power and authority, and also willingness to be uncomfortable to kind of engage in this dialogue, right?
Yes, and at all levels.
I agree. I totally agree. And I do feel like we are fortunate in this community to have spaces like CORE. I've been invited to some of the work that they're doing. It's an entirely volunteer run initiative. for communities organizing against racism. And I think there is a question of gender balance there too. I mean, if you go into those spaces, there is a lot of parents, a lot of moms in those spaces from what I've seen, but on occasion, you might find like one, white male who, who's been there, or a spouse of one, one of the very engaged moms. But it is, from what I can tell, and again, we've been invited as people of color to some of their gatherings as appropriate, because it's really not a space for people of color. It's my understanding is it's for individuals or to create a safe space, particularly for the white community, to engage in dialogue and matters around race. So, and it's still a group that's very active, and I think it's a resource in our community beyond the DEI Commission, and they're still engaged in really good work. So that is another space. So
What was the E for?
CORE is
You said
COAR, Communities Organizing Against Racism, and their website is CORE Action, COAR action.org. And it's entirely volunteer-led effort to promote education and action to address impacts of systemic racism in our communities. And it's predominantly a group of conquered families, simply that originally that it all originated through, and it is that have actually maintained a really active presence and voice around a lot of DEI. So just another resource.
And it's a very historic piece because I've been doing this work for decades, and Community Change in Boston has done a lot of work with the Black Policemen's Association, and all the events that we've had, it really is about pulling out and getting more white men to show up. Because let's be real, a lot of the power structure is controlled by the white men. So how do we break into that? And I think the first step is just by acknowledging it and being aware. Next time you go to an event around DEI stuff, look at the gender balance, look at the color balance. That's what I always look at, those values. And that shows me the results of our work when more people feel safe can show up.
Nancy has something to say.
Yes, Nancy.
Nancy?
Yeah, I was going to follow up, and Jimmy sort of said there's no answer, but how do we address this? Where do we go? How do we involve white men? And there has to be something.
The question was,
White men.
Nancy's question is, how do we, there's no solution, but how do we address this? How do we involve white men?
Sorry.
Nancy, go ahead.
It was me trying to say something.
Oh, Agnes, sorry.
I think we do have, of course, they already wear the privilege, and but usually how we brand or write invitations to spaces usually tends to focus. Excuse me, my voice is like laced with a cold. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, so I was trying to say that because the way many times when we do invitations, it tends to gear around individuals who are disenfranchised. So if you don't feel like you won't show up. But it's all about language.
Speaking up and repeating that when you can. Sorry.
Give us a little.
We're
having a little tech.
Okay. And if not, I can write up. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I was saying that usually it's about the language, how we write the invites, like the invitations, like people, if we have a group, how we write who is invited at the table. If you already have the privilege, you won't feel like there's need to show up. But most times how language is written, because already white males wear privilege, so they might not feel like they need to show up because they're not impacted.
Right. And I think part of our larger discussion, even as we move into our like community coffee that's going to begin right in this space at 1 p.m., is this notion of allyship, right? Is this notion of like, how do we come together across community, across race, across gender, with the spirit of allyship and partnership to really, collectively do better and make our community better. And so, but languaging, as you shared, Aggie, is definitely a piece, and with more, I would say, communications expertise within our realm, I think that's something we could definitely, think about how our languaging, and we're going to be diving into that too momentarily with respect to our charge.
So just, I tried to change the speakers to the TV speakers. Can you try and speak again? Just to see whether.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. I don't have to repeat myself, do I?
And tech skills,
And liaison.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No
All right.
applause, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
We can hear you much better now. But go ahead, yeah.
So for those who are in the room who didn't hear, I don't know if she's going to repeat it, but she talked about we have to take a look at the language and how we write invitations. I don't know if people heard. Did you hear? No. The invitations we write.
Aggie, do you want to just summarize now that you can be?
Now that
Okay.
everyone can hear
And you've
you,
had
if you
time to
want-
think it through.
Yeah.
Just give us the summary.
I know my voice is already sore, but I'll try. I said because of the way the invites are usually written, as if you're already wearing privilege, you may feel like you do not need to show up. So if there's language around how you can contribute as an ally, probably that would be helpful. But most times invitations are okay, well, people of color, or if you're wearing any kind of what do we call it? Ism, for lack of a better word, then you show up. But if you don't feel like, if you don't think you wear that, you are in that lens, you might not show up. So we might think about language when we're doing the invitations. Excuse me.
Thank you.
I think the language that is used by the commission and just generally the public does need to be considered, because number one, if you're appearing to attack a group, to educate a group, then I think people are going to be resistant to attending, and I think that's one of the things that Agnes was suggesting. Unless people understand what is being meant by the word privilege, it does come off as something that is an attack. It's not a welcome, come be our ally. We need you to be an ally. It comes off almost as a lecture. So I think people should be careful of the language when you're trying to get people to be allies. However, I think, again, the problem is commissions and committees expect people to come to you. I think going to where any audience that we're looking to speak to are found. So recruiting our faith leaders and you're asking them to use their bully pulpits to share that message and to other community events. I think that's, if we want to engage, we probably have to engage on the terms of the audiences, not just white males, but in all. Probably need to go where they are to engage and say, we need allies. This is for all of us. So I think, again, as Agnes was suggesting, the language we use, how we engage, are important things to consider.
So thank you, Brian, for that. I guess one of the things that we continue to assess as a commission is like, where does our gesture of inquiry or our gesture of creating an avenue of dialogue or communication then become what you said, like a perceived attack, right? So, because certainly that's not our intention. That's not what we're trying to do, is attack anyone. That's actually what we're trying to prevent, right? Is for people feeling like there's a sense of being attacked and or persecuted in any way. based on any matter, but, what, I guess I would love to open up a dialogue even for the commission to, how can we pose care and inquiry, right, around these very serious matters that are happening in our community without it being taken as a perceived attack. Or like, it's about one individual or one, when it's really like, this is a broader dialogue that we're trying to engage in together.
And it takes a lot of work and time to break the barriers down, to allow people to have a history of feeling safe so that they can be their true self in front of everybody. I've been in those spaces. I've done deep listening circles with men and women, brothers, sisters, councils. And that's what's motivated me to continue doing my work. I've seen a lot of success in this process, but it takes commitment on everybody's part.
Yeah, and I think it's also like, from what I can see, and I know even with our own growth, I mean, we have members of our commission that have disagreed with one another at different moments in time, that have had to work through communication. And I feel like, we have been able to disagree and move through things, but there needs to be a clear willingness, right? A willingness to be uncomfortable, a willingness to move through that discomfort together, a willingness to learn from one another and our diverse perspectives. So like keeping that all in kind of heart and mind, how do we continue to engage and move this forward?
Yeah, I think, not really yet. I think like a family or a workplace or any group, to work through hard things, we have to admit that there are hard things and we've got issues that we need to work on. And I think sometimes we get trapped in trying to have the conversation about difficult things, and people are like, why are you bringing this up? Can't we have a nice holiday? Why do you have to keep talking about, X problem? So I think that's where, I think we should always be aware of language, but I think we have to know this work will cause people to be upset with each other, have disagreements. That's how we know, that's how you know you're making progress, right? In any kind of, to me. And when there's an issue in the workplace or an issue in the family or an issue in your relationship, unless you go through the hard conversation, it's not going to get any better. So, and do it thoughtfully, but we have to know it's going to be difficult.
And in order to have that hard conversation, create a safe structure has to be in place.
Yeah. And
when Maureen was on the plane with me, we worked on something called deep listening circles, or council process, which was happening in town. If you remember the early days of the police working with the victims of crimes and the people who committed the crimes, getting them in the same room. I've also done work at Minuteman High School with the Metco kids and the white students, and we did a council process where I put all of the kids of color in the center, and they had a council and they were talking, and after a while they forgot that there were all these other people out there, and they became really real and true and said some really powerful things. And it's about creating that space, that safe space for everybody. And it really starts with brothers and sisters councils, places where men and women can be treated as equals. And then all these other issues come forward, but then can be dealt with and addressed, because I'm not going to speak out of my truth unless I feel safe in the space to begin with. So it's really about creating that safe space where people can open up, speak their truth, and not be assaulted or attacked by that. And I've been in those places and I've seen it work. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
And again, I'm hearing that care and willingness to kind of get uncomfortable. Thank you, Jimmy. Any other thoughts before we jump into our next robust agenda item?
Is this open to public feedback as well?
We absolutely, we're going to have public comment
on this last discussion.
Yeah. Public comment when it's open, it can be on anything you want.
Yeah.
There's no parameters.
All right, any other thoughts? All right, so next we'll move to our.
I would like to say I've
Yes.
seen different initiatives in organizations and what they do to engage people in this type of work, specifically to appeal or to find a way of speaking to white males. I've seen hotlines specifically for white males who, in a way, feel they're losing their identity because of the changes. And these hotlines are there for them to discuss, and to, I guess, learn a different language and to express different things, and also to listen to each other and their groups if they get together and do that. I guess that's something that can happen one day.
I mean, there are affinity spaces, in the community. I know some of the private schools have affinity spaces for members of the white community. I know that they're just similar to they have it for affinity groups. Like we had some of our affinity groups come and speak at our last meeting. We had one of the language teachers, the Chinese language teacher, to tell us about Lunar New Year and the affinity space that entire initiative has brought. Similarly, I think there are some institutions in town that are seeking to create their own spaces. I'm not as aware of any specifically, for example, at the high school as it relates to that. However, I think we're talking about an intergenerational issue. I don't think it's a matter excluded to just youth. And I think what you're raising is certainly, not just a matter involving our kids and youth here in town, but really a broader matter at large.
And these groups, they actually address DEI matters. That's why they are formed,
right?
To understand DEI matters, how they make them feel, and how to process them.
Right, and actually the high school has had some speakers even come related to this. I think there was the author, I believe her name, not her name, she wrote the book Waking Up White. And she's an educator, and she came and spoke. It was Waking Up White, Finding Myself in the Story of Race, and she came and spoke at the high school. But we had, I think there has been several, or there have been some activities related to trying to curate those spaces. But I think what I'm hearing is like, where are those spaces long term? And again, like similar to what we raised earlier, where are those opportunities for ongoing dialogue and discussion and engagement versus kind of like a one and done, like one event happens, this topic is there, but really where do people go after that? Aggie, yes.
Yeah, another model that people use would be to weave equity and inclusion within everything: housing, school, the finances, everything, because it has to be. And then in that case, everyone is forced to think through a DEI lens other than isolating it. Because if you isolate it, then people are saying that only a few people should discuss and are concerned with those issues. Whereas if it's woven through everything, then every department has to think through an equity lens, an inclusion lens, a diversity lens.
And I totally agree with what Jimmy and Agnes said. But the question for me is, how do we get there? How do we get different entities to think about inclusion and equity? And I don't think that's going to be easy.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think what we're talking about is systemic prioritization with these values and this lens at large. And so unless it becomes a systemic priority across the board, that's where we see this opportunity to weave in, right, in an ongoing manner. But as I look at the time, and I know that we have a pretty robust discussion ahead of us, we're going to move towards, thank you all for sharing. But we're going to, and I'll pass it over to Andrea to begin us in our discussion deliberation on the charge.
Thank you, Rose. I will be presenting an update on a revised DEI Commission charge. This revision was prompted by very serious incidents in our community these past summers that demanded our attention and action. And I will I would like to provide some of the context of what happened.
There's an echo.
I think it's very important that we openly discuss it and just say it out loud. Okay, so we learned at the same time of all of you, I guess, that there was a federal civil rights complaint filed with the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights, alleging that Concord Carlisle Regional School District failed to protect Jewish students from pervasive anti-Semitic harassment, discrimination, and
Can you speak up, please? We can't hear. Or maybe the microphone. Yeah.
No, I think
Do you want to sit here, I'll go back there, since you're loud enough for me?
Oh, we're using that mic down there?
I think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
the mic is on the laptop.
Okay. What do I do?
Just speak near the laptop.
Agnes, is this better?
yes.
Great. Okay. The filing alleged that Concord Carlisle Regional School District failed to protect Jewish students from pervasive anti-Semitic harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. The documented incidents. Thank you, not so close. That's okay. Let's leave it there. Thank you. Better? Yes. The documented incidents included Nazi salutes in school hallways, students dividing into teams called Team Auschwitz and Team Hamas during athletic games, swastikas drawn in notebooks and on school property, use of anti-Semitic slurs, including kike, dirty Jew, and go to the gas chamber. At least one Jewish student forced to leave the district to escape the hostile climate. Harassment involving at least 7 different students across multiple social groups. We then in August had additional incidents occur in town, outside of the school environment, which included vandalism of Israeli flag displays at a resident home, swastikas reportedly drawn during a 9th grade orientation session back in the school, graffiti reading, genocide supporters live here and we don't want no Zionists here. These incidents did not happen in isolation. I believe they represent a systemic failure of our community and that our DEI Commission must address through clear, explicit policy language. And I'm going to go back to what I mean with policy language because it's very important that we do focus on policy processes and tools. In response to these events, we conducted comprehensive research to understand how other Massachusetts municipalities, which include both towns and cities, address anti-Semitism and hate in their DEI frameworks. I was specifically focused and interested in knowing how these, how this could actually become a governance or a policy, something that we can work and build on. Not just proclamations or statements, but actual mechanisms that would allow us to act, even force us to act. Let me tell you a little bit about the scope of the research. We reviewed 351 municipalities in Massachusetts, so all of them. We identified, and I've mentioned this before, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna keep repeating it because I think it's actually very cool and comprehensive. We identified 104 of them have DEI bodies, commissions, or committees. And then we also obtained the charges or governing documents of these bodies. Only 66 of them have it. and we analyzed those. We also examined ordinances, bylaws, policies, statements, and proclamations, and I'll go back to that in a minute. What were we looking for? Explicit mention of anti-Semitism in the governing documents, not just statements. Protection of religious minorities, explicitly how they addressed Jewish community incidents against Jewish community members, bias, crime, and hate incident frameworks, and best practices for comprehensive inclusion. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our findings. We found that of the 66 governing documents or charges that we found, 0 included the specific term anti-Semitism in their committee charges or governance policies. This is striking and surprising. And while many municipalities protect against religious discrimination, very broadly, anti-Semitism was not explicitly named in any formal DEI policy framework in this state. So that's huge, I think. We did find New Bedford to be the only municipality whose Human Rights Commission ordinance explicitly addresses anti-Semitic hate through specific provisions, not the actual word, and they don't mention the Jewish community also, either. What they do, and we actually reference that in our revised charge, their approach includes explicit protection for synagogue alongside churches and other houses of worship, Nazi swastika specifically named as a hate symbol, alongside burning crosses and nooses. And what they do that we don't have, and I'm going to tell you why, is also a comprehensive bias crime framework addressing vandalism of religious institutions and enforcement mechanisms. We don't have that yet in our charge because we don't have a reporting mechanism yet. But I foresee that whenever we do have it, we'll have to amend our charge again to see how we're going to participate in those processes. We did include a lot of the prevention activities in this charge, but nothing to do with enforcement or the actual mechanical process of responding to incidents, because that's happening in another body in town. Another finding is that 18 municipalities of the 66 include religion or religious creed as a protected category in their DEI policies. I have a list of them for anyone who wants to know more. But we thought this generic approach, well, it has lots of limitations for what we're trying to achieve in Concord regarding anti-Semitism. To me, I think religion is broad and does not capture the ethnical and ancestral dimension of anti-Semitism. And it does not address specific manifestations of anti-Semitic hate. And also, it does not represent explicitly the Jewish community members. We did find a gap between statements and policy, and this is what I was referring to a couple of minutes ago. If you go online or on all of these websites, you will see that many municipalities have proclamations and statements that have been issued, condemning anti-Semitism, possibly in response to incidents in their communities, but these are not codified into formal DEI or government town city policies. I have a list of those too, in case you want to see it. Acton adopted the IHR definition of anti-Semitism on a proclamation that has, again, it is not codified. Wellesley they did a mapping project targeting Jewish institutions. We had a statement. Wakefield has a general proclamation against hate, etc. And again, like I said, statements and proclamations are important, but they lack enforcement mechanisms. And they may not be integrated into ongoing DEI work, can be forgotten after a while. And most importantly, I believe, for the type of DEI work that needs to happen in a town like Concord, they do not provide an operational guidance for commissions and committees or other town organizations or the school district. So that's the context, and that's the research we did. So we put together a charge, a proposal, and put it out for feedback. It's been a couple of, since we had a first version in August, and then a second version in November, and we did receive a lot of community feedback. So much, and I want to take a minute to thank you, to thank all the community members. It was such enthusiastic feedback, and it really, I believe, made the document stronger, more comprehensive, more responsive to the full range of incidents and biases and the things that happen in our town. I was really, really, really surprised and happy to see just the level of detail of the type of feedback we received, down to the text. And we tried to integrate as much as possible. At some point it became a little repetitive, which is normal when you do some, like civic engagement, to get community feedback for these type of policies. But I do want to thank all the community members who shared it and for taking the time to engage with this work. And also, I like during all this process, it just became very clear to me, and I am thankful for, to the Jewish community also, for having the courage to speak up about your experiences, even when our response in our commission and in the town and in the schools has not been adequate or enough. I think this revised charge is a direct result of your advocacy. Very well. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the feedback, which was it not only had to do with anti-Semitism, it really strengthened just our whole, really the whole structure of our charge. We added ageism, which means discrimination based on age. We added Islamophobia, religious bigotry targeting Muslims, xenophobia, prejudice against immigrants and people from other countries, anti-Asian hate, specific forms of racism targeting Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, anti-Arab hate, specific forms of prejudice targeting Arab Americans. We added sexism, discrimination based on sex and gender. We also added specific incidents that needed addressing. We referenced New Bedford's experience. So we added vandalism of religious and cultural institutions, churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, and gurdwaras. Display of hate symbols, swastikas, burning crosses, and nooses. Threatening conduct based on identity, and creation of hostile environments. And then there were some structural improvements that were suggested that we integrated on this one draft. We changed backgrounds, which was a word we were using in the first paragraph, to include gender identity. So we integrated that. We also included woman we are ensuring that women are explicitly named as an underrepresented group, which was not there before. And then below, under duties and responsibilities, we worked on making the charge more actionable and specific. And that is something I think we've been working on already, but it wasn't specifically listed as responsibilities and duties. And we included different administrative things that we already do, but I wanted to make sure that they were part of the draft this time. In preparation for the incident reporting mechanism that is being put together, we included some duties and responsibilities that have to do with prevention, mostly training, and with collaboration between school leadership and different town organizations. That was a feedback that was integrated. And again, we left out all of the more mechanical stuff, but that I guess can be added at some point when we learn what the design of our mechanism is gonna look like. Specifically, and I'm assuming you guys have the charge there, in our purpose paragraph, it now includes diverse cultural, religious, socioeconomic, racial, ethnic, and sex and gender identities. The new paragraph explicitly addresses bias-motivated conduct and hate incidents. The diversity definition now explicitly names religious minorities, including Jewish community members, women as an underrepresented gender group, and then a comprehensive list including immigration status. I do want to say what I think is next, what our charge doesn't do, and what it does now and what it doesn't do. So it explicitly names anti-Semitism alongside other forms of hate, name Jewish community members as historically underrepresented group, addresses specific manifestations with the swastika and vandalism of synagogues, provides educational and preventive framework. It's also grounded in Massachusetts state law. What it doesn't do, it doesn't provide enforcement mechanisms. It does not require our incident reporting system to be operational yet, so it works for now. I think that's it. Yeah.
Andrea,
Yes.
I'm curious because you went through all these communities. Hull, Massachusetts was one of the very earliest towns in Massachusetts to do the no hate in Hull. This was back in the 80s, the late 80s. I wondered if you had anything come up with them, because they were one of the first communities in Massachusetts to really stand up for anti-Semitism and racism.
No.
We did a lot of work in the 80s with community change in Boston, which deals with systemic racism. We were embedded in the Occupy movement to observe the class structures that were created within the Occupy movement. We found out that 1% was controlling first Occupy.
We did not. No, we looked at,
Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious, because
Yes.
Hull was one of the very first communities in Massachusetts that come out, no hate in Hull. And they had a big program. This was back in the 80s, late 80s.
What I think is strong about this is it shows that this, you know, the charge is from 2021. That was when the DEI Commission was first formed, I believe. And that the charge at that time was the best work, whoever put that together, was the best work of 2021. In 5 years or 4 years, a lot has changed, a lot of growth, a lot of learning. So I think this represents like what should go on. Like every few years, someone should look at this and be like updating it. So I know we're only recommending it to the select board, but you did a massive amount of work, and it seems to take all that, to do the research, and then take all that feedback and figure out how to get it in here. I think it looks really strong, and it's way stronger than it was before.
I mean, I guess it's a work in progress.
Yes, it should be, right?
We can probably still improve it
Yeah.
as we respond to the needs of
I
our
mean, some of
community.
these charges you look at in the town, like last were touched in 1982, right? So this is really good.
Yeah,
Within
yeah,
4
yeah.
years, you're making it
Yeah,
better.
absolutely, of course.
That's good.
I'd like to just say a few things and ask a few things. One, I want to say thank you. When you say we looked into this, you looked into this. I mean, you did an extraordinary amount of work. You went through the comments. I know you've had conversations independently, not violating the open meeting laws, just to say, but asking for ongoing feedback and response to comments. And what you did was an extraordinary lift, and I appreciate it. So thank you. And your emotional, you know, when you first opened up and started reading some of the things that were from the federal complaint and you showed emotion, you've always taken this as a personal mission. And I hope this is making sense. And I appreciate your care that you've shown for this, and you've taken it seriously. And I appreciate that.
Thank you, thank you. I just reading it out loud, it is so difficult.
Yeah, imagine the students at the end
I
of
mean,
that, and the parents. Also, just for clarity, for clarification, when you say New Bedford, are you really referring to Bedford?
It's New Bedford, the city.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
because I know Bedford had a lot of issues and I've been doing this. I just want to make sure
Yes.
we're talking about the right.
And you know, there are actually 99 documents between the proclamation, statements, and charges. Only 66 of them are charges. We have them in case anybody wants to, you know, look at them, and there are other things we can learn from them that doesn't specifically have to do with anti-Semitism, but it was our focus this time. But there are many, many, many things we can learn from our neighbors.
Sure. Just a few more things if you don't mind me asking. What was the impetus? I can ask both co-chairs. What was the impetus for taking on the mission of revising our DEI Commission charge?
The objective?
No, what caused the discussion to create this? What sparked the change?
Including anti-Semitism in our charge.
Okay.
It was very clear. It was a response to what was happening in our town.
Right. And
That's what it is.
and your research focused on this, and you know, almost all of your remarks were focused on that as well. So I just want to ask for the commission members, has everyone read this in detail and understands what has been written? Because I know there have been a lot of iterations of this, lots of revisions, which I appreciate again the work. But I'm just hoping that, I guess that's more rhetorical. I'm not going to really call a vote to see who's read it. But I'd like to, if you don't mind, read a statement, because I felt like it puts my thoughts together on this. Now, because your comments were all focused on, or largely focused on the Jewish community and the anti-Semitism in our community, I'm going to address primarily that in the context of what the new charge looks like, right? And so I'm going to speak plainly about what happened to this charge revision. We began this process well-intentioned to address a specific documented series of crises. Our town is under federal investigation, you noted that, for civil rights violations against Jewish students, which I'll also expand to non-Jewish families because there are interfaith families who were involved with that. The Schwartz family's memorial was desecrated and vandalized. Hateful graffiti was written on sidewalks, on our town sidewalks. These are not abstract concerns or theoretical possibilities. They're real incidents that happen to real families in our town. The December revision, and also now we have white power written on a bathroom wall. We've had swastikas that were not reported. The November revision reflected that reality, and it responded to the charge that was given to us to look into our commission's charge. It gave appropriate prominence to anti-Semitism because anti-Semitism is what's actively harming our community right now. The December revision has transformed that focused response into something else entirely. We now list anti-Arab hate as a priority concern, despite having, as we spoke on the side, no reported incidents of anti-Arab hate in Concord. Meanwhile, we've documented significant anti-Israeli hate, including the vandalism of the Schwartz Memorial, yet we failed to name that specifically in this. We list 13 different forms of bias as if they're all equally urgent, when they're not. This isn't, and by the way, I'm speaking to you because you gave a presentation, this isn't about you. You did great. This is not comprehensive. This is what I would consider evasive from the issue. We had a mandate to respond to documented harm. Instead, we responded to the what about voices, which during the conversations following the report and from the ADL and other organizations, we need to avoid what about ourselves, because then we dilute the impact of those who are actually hurting. We had concern after concern until the actual crisis that prompted this provision has been buried in the list so long, it allows us to avoid prioritizing anything. I understand the impulse when you name one community suffering, others feel unseen, but we are not a commission tasked with making everyone feel equally represented, which is not my language. It is actually written in the charge as it relates to funding, because we say it's not to be equal funding, because we have other priorities. That's in there, right? We are tasked with addressing real harm. Right now, that harm is directed at the Jewish community. The federal complaint is about Jewish students. The vandalized memorial belonged to a Jewish family. The graffiti targeted Jewish property. The town is now working on has a working group for responding to hate and incidents for reporting, which was also spurred by this and by the Concord Carlisle Against Anti-Semitism group. As a commission, we are, I think, overreaching. We were meant to span this charge as a triage response to a real and present danger facing the Jewish community and threatening our town's reputation. Instead, we've diluted that focus and are once again failing to prioritize actual documented challenges. Worse, we are now demonstrating the same indifference to these challenges that created the crisis in the first place, while advancing personal bias and agendas under the guise of inclusivity. I'm also concerned that we are also promoting internally and to some extent externally a film that we host on town property that is biased and one-sided, called No Other Land, from people who have a history of writing public statements, anti-Israel statements, and what many in the Jewish community consider anti-Semitic. So for these reasons, I'll vote no on this charge, but with respect and appreciation for what you've done, and I wanted to make my thoughts clear on that. Thank you. And I appreciate you. You are a remarkable individual who cares about something.
How long are we to a public comment period?
I'm sorry.
Just
When
a
is
question, how long are we to a public comment period?
3 minutes.
2 minutes?
3 minutes per individual.
Does anybody else want to comment or discuss something in particular?
Yeah, I had, thank you, Andrea, for all the effort and care. Thank you for sharing this perspective as well. I had a couple of concrete questions related to the research that we did.
Yeah.
Of the municipalities that you highlighted, that you studied, you shared some data. And I was wondering, of those towns, I also just want to give space, quite frankly, for what you shared. I feel like, I think that requires some space. Before I delve into my.
So we usually,
Yeah.
so I think when we're looking at policy, one of the first things we do is say, what are other towns doing? What are other cities doing? How are other governments solving this problem? That doesn't mean necessarily that those are best practices. So I do want to say that. It doesn't mean that those are best practices, that they have been evaluated, that their impact has been standardized, and it is something that we are trying to achieve. It doesn't, and sometimes that's hard to see when we're trying to write policy, and when we don't have resources, and money and time, which is, I think, the reality of many municipalities around the world. So I don't want to say, this is what we have to do. Actually, we found no one who was doing that. And we didn't say, let's not do it. We said, well, we're going to do it. No, and because because it specifically responds to our community's needs, I'm sorry. So I do want to say that and put it on the table, talking about the research and what we did. It's not all powerful. It has gaps and it has issues. So I do want to put that on the table and just open it up for everybody to know. But thank you, Rose, for bringing that up. I think, Brian, I hear you. I do hear you.
Thank you.
I think this version might not, maybe it lost the sense of urgency the August version had. You are right. I think so. The feedback we received, though, was about that. It was about including. It's actually on their not highlighted, on bold type. Those are all the changes we did, and they have to do with many things. No, so much feedback really about the first one, as well as diverse sexual orientations and gender identities. It used to say, I think, sexual orientation and gender backgrounds. So the identity piece came back, and that was important. And that was a concern, from citizens. Do we ignore it? To just have, to go back to our only focus for this one revision? We haven't revised our charge in 4 years.
Sure.
Maybe we should have done that earlier, and that way we could have focused on this one, important issue that we're trying to solve today. I didn't. I included most of the feedback. So, but I do recognize, and I'm sorry. It does feel like because there are so many new changes that we lost the sense of urgency in responding to the incidents happening in our community. But it's really, I want to say that and reassure everybody in the town that that's not the case. There was just so much. Like the second one, if you go down to the second paragraph, to the sentence that starts, these groups include but are not restricted to populations of color, such as African Americans, and then we used to have in blacks. We got feedback from Andrew from the schools, which I thought was amazing, saying that you're just saying blacks to refer to to black people is offensive. I didn't know that. I have to say I did not know that, and I really, truly, I'm very appreciative of that. So we included that. But anyways, it is, I think, a work in progress. The third paragraph, for example, all the changes there were very focused on, and we have that feedback on one of the emails. This person was saying, don't say ensure as if, we're okay with the status quo. We'll keep fighting. We aim to give, we work to build. So for example, and I love it that I actually get to share, the meaning of the feedback we received and the intention behind the different things that people were suggesting. This one had to do with the status quo. We're not done. We're still fighting. We're building on top of, and you'll see that the changes on this paragraph have to do with that specifically. That paragraph also had, for some reason, we were including, I don't know, the next paragraph, the one that starts with inclusion, it referred to organization in a couple of instances, and somebody, noted that and said, why don't we change it to the town and community? And also in the very last sentence of that paragraph, we included toward community and societal goals. So yes, it does have a really long list of things we want to do, and of things that we included. The duties and responsibilities, honestly, my first draft was just about anti-Semitism, and then I looked at all the other things we could learn from other communities, from community members, and the focus of everybody's feedback, and I tried to include it and to help the town, eventually build, like design, build and develop all these tools that we'll be using, and to give us some teeth, I guess, to be able to execute all that. So yes, it does have, so many things that I believe make it stronger. I do want to say it is not with the intention of diluting or watering down our initial objective of including anti-Semitism. Absolutely not, of course not. And I apologize if it seems that way, but it's really not.
Yeah, I appreciate all that. I just want to say that you added anti-Semitism, but you also mentioned the word excluding others, but you don't do that, and neither did the original charge. It was just generic, right? It was.
What do you mean?
Language.
I'm sorry.
So what I'm saying is, we added anti-Semitism, which was the right thing to do with the urgency of now is. But it didn't exclude others because it had the and the other forms. So as we always say, as we hear in this commission and popular language today, we are naming the issue, right? And naming the issue at hand. What the town is right now doing and the schools are right now doing, trying to correct these issues. So that's where my problem lies, and it's not against having language like anti-Arab. It's about we're inflaming issues by not recognizing what is actually happening by talking about anti-Israel, right? But also it's anyway. So I'm going to leave that part of it. The one thing I would say is we have a section about membership on this commission. I would say that should also consider, and maybe this is a recommendation that goes forward to the select board, where there should be criteria for staying on the commission, like attendance at meetings, a certain percentage. I feel like that should happen to all commissions in this town, because we have people who are apparently on this commission who I've never met personally or seen online. So I feel like if we're going to have an impact and actually get things done in this town with the resources that Agnes has mentioned in the past, we need to make sure that people are committed to being here, and if there are significant conflicts, this isn't the place. So I feel like there needs to be criteria not just for being on it, but for staying on it, so we can do good for the community. The other thing I would just recommend is we should probably recommend as this moves forward, should it move forward to the select board, that on our Concord Police Department website, on the front page especially, you can't find anything about bias or hate. It's buried in a policy deep within the site. I found it a long time ago. If this is a priority for the town, it should be a priority for the police department as well, which I know they do take it all seriously, but it should be obvious and apparent to the town and to people who visit the police department website, and it should be on the front page.
I have a question about the membership that I guess, I'm not sure if that question is for you, Magnolia. But are we?
Just really quick, just
Yeah.
in terms of the time check, I do want to bring it up to public comment
Oh,
as
yeah.
well,
Okay.
just because I don't know if people need to leave for 12:30, they're planning on staying with us through the coffee, but just to
Yes.
kind of, but just to, you know, you had a question.
So, the membership and the number of, yes, the attendance and all that, can we develop a guideline and then like an operational guideline for us? And as to how we want to do that, or is that like a select board, or does that have to be in the charge?
I want to, Brian's question has caused me to think, I thought I saw someplace that there is a guideline that applies to committees about membership. Certainly it's within the purviews of the chairs to observe if anyone is inconsistently attending or participating in a committee, and ask them whether or not they might, want to be relieved or allow the place for somebody else. There is interest in a committee like this one, and I feel like, particularly in this environment, when there is interest, if people have significant conflict, I mean, things change, and we need to be respectful of people's needs. And so, there's nothing wrong with, recognizing that it might be time to step aside and hand the opportunity over to somebody else who may have more ability to serve at any given time. So I think it's an important issue. I would resist putting it in every single charge just because from a maintenance thing. So I will take the action to go figure out where that is in our policy, because I do believe I've seen it. It may be in APP 10, but that's the first place I'm going to look, which is the Committee of Board Appointment Policy, and it also may be in the committee handbook. Those are the two places that I would double check. I just haven't looked at it as well.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, and so with that, shall we move to public comment? Are you okay with that? Or can we continue to deliberate or? Okay. All right, so we will open this public comment.
Yes, I'm not familiar with the format. This is my first time at a town meeting. Speak up, okay. So
Can you move up to the microphone, maybe?
Yeah, you don't,
Yeah, we're closer
have
to
to
that.
coming up.
You don't mind.
Most of us won't
Yeah,
fight.
you can get your chair if you'd like to do it.
You got it, you got it, you got it, you got it.
Thanks.
Okay, so my name is Jennifer Bell. This is my first time trying to make a comment in a town
Repeat your
forum.
name, I'm sorry.
Jennifer Bell. So I would like to go back to, and you're Michael?
I'm Brian.
Brian, yeah, to Brian's comment that the so I think the key thing that was in Brian's comments was that this is what has been reported to the town. I believe there are many other terrible incidents that have happened in our school that are not necessarily reported. So I remember a recent quote I heard that I think is from the medical community, is that what you perceive in isolation, you treat in isolation. The middle word of this committee is equity. So I think that in trying to specifically direct the efforts of this committee towards the ADL complaint, you are diminishing the mandate of this group. So the sorry, there was an excellent article on the topic of the IHRA definition in a recent New Yorker. Trying to compose my thoughts. The town policy and these sorts of charges are for the long term. So we want to set them up so that they are solving problems for the long term. And town policy is for everyone, not just a specific group. So I fully support the changes to the charge that do make the language more inclusive and including of separate groups. So going back to this article that I was talking about, that it was actually the lead author of the IHRA definition, which has come up a few times in town discussion, is that creating the perception that Jewish people are accorded special privileges actually makes it more dangerous for Jewish people. And in fact, this New Yorker author said that it was hard for him to think of a more effective way to breed anti-Jewish animus than to create special protections for Jewish people. Those are my comments.
Thank you.
Just so you know, in the clerks, so I'm just typing everything out that you said. I was listening. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I'm sorry, I just have a process question. After this meeting, what happens to the charge? I know that Ryan has said no to the charge once a vote is had.
It'll go to the select board. The select board is the ultimate determinant of the charges of all committees. We're just giving our recommendation. Whatever we do is a recommendation to the select board.
Thank you, that's helpful. And I see all the changes made here, and thank you very much. I saw that you tried to be as inclusive of all the comments, and I think that's so helpful. But the community hasn't seen what was omitted and what was included. So will it be recirculated to the community to be able to assess whether they're comfortable with these changes as well? Will there be an opportunity for them to review it in depth? I'm seeing it for the first time, and my apologies if it was posted and I just did not get to it.
This version is not posted.
Can that happen in the select board round or not? I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so just to comment on the select board process, I wasn't sure how far this commission was going to get today, but I have included an update on the process of updating the charge for this coming Monday select board meeting, and whatever the draft is that they're working on, it will appear in the select board packet, which will be published tomorrow for Monday night's meeting. So anybody that wants to reread that. I also believe that I saw that today's meeting packet for the commission, which is published on the commission's webpage, includes the emails that were received that had comments from people that submitted comments. So, you know, a person that's interested in what comments were made and what the, to Andrea's point, what the rationale was that somebody might have made a comment under and included when they submitted it, is all available as part of the public record going into this meeting. I'll just make this comment based on how far along we are. My update to the select board will be, here's the current working draft of the DEI Commission's charge. They don't appear to be ready to take a vote and make a recommendation, but the select board members we're closely following this process and dialogue, and are very interested in it, and whatever comes out of this committee will probably get tweaked or possibly modified substantially based on our understanding of what the committee uses. I'll take this opportunity, as long as I'm speaking, to just mention that we're probably going to focus more on the duties and responsibilities, what we're looking for, because it is a charge. We're asking this commission to do certain work on behalf of the community. I really appreciate that the thoughtfulness that's gone into the statement of purpose, which is the first section with the definitions of what diversity, equity, and inclusion mean and what the problem sort of is. So if you look at the chart, it's more or less in those two sections. It's like, what's the situation? Why are we doing this? And then what do we expect this commission to do? And so I'm expecting the select board's discussion is going to focus a little bit more on, you know, what do we want to see from the commission? And that's a process that all committees are asked to think about their goals annually and align them with select board goals and town manager goals. And so we've set out a specific goal this year to try to address in particular, the anti-Semitic activity that we've seen, recognizing that that doesn't mean that some of the other issues have gone away, or that some of these that were raised in here may never occur in Concord. Nobody would be that naive.
So I guess the public comment, sorry.
That was it for me. My only hope is that this is recirculated, because I know that there has been a lot of community input, and I know that it's very meaningful what the ultimate condition of this is. My apologies, I do have to go, but I really appreciate everybody's time and work.
Appreciate you taking the time to come.
Would you mind sharing your name? It's up to you if you want to.
I would prefer not to.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you will.
Any other public comment?
Online. Yeah, Jody.
Me? Sorry. Thank you for this discussion. I think the way that this is all unfolded, that, I really do support a broad charge, even though I do take issue with some of the language as Brian has mentioned. But I do wonder, about sometimes the commission's willingness to address anti-Semitism directly without always folding it into every other category of discrimination. I obviously support the work of combating all forms of hate, but when anti-Semitism has been so visible and so frequent in recently in our community, I really do need to know that it can be named on its own without any hesitation or qualification. And I do want to, emphasize equity and equality, not the same. Right, we're not trying to treat every form of discrimination, identically. Maybe that feels equal, but it's not equitable, because equity is really more responding to what's actually happening and addressing the forms of hate that we see that are most acute. Andrea's list was, evidence of that, and because right now it really includes anti-Semitism as one of the tops. Not to diminish what we continue to see with white power symbols, but white supremacy also loves to pick on the Jews. So they're all folded in. So as you vote on the charge, I hope you'll consider how the charge can better reflect that reality and rebuild trust with those of us who need to see anti-Semitism taken seriously and explicitly and without any dilution, so that we know that even if a broader charge is adopted, it's not going to lose its momentum in terms of addressing what triggered the charge to be updated in the first place. That's all. Thank you. And my name is Jody. I live in Sperber on Old Bedford Road in Concord.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you, Jody. Any other public comment?
So my question will go back to the chairs. Do you, based on the conversation we've had today, is this something you want us to vote on, or are we going to, is there more work to do from your standpoint and then bring it back, or is this something we vote on so that the select board can start working on taking it further, knowing there's going to be feedback like we heard today? I'm just not sure what you want us, what our conversation should be.
So, what I heard is there are a lot of changes, but I guess, is there any very specific things we should take out for this round of revisions? If there are, I guess we could evaluate them and, and discuss them. I'm just not sure which ones to take out. So if there is a specific discussion, on specific things, we could have it. Yeah.
We should hear from others. I'll say my thing, I'll be quiet. I think there's a lot of good feedback that we got today, both from our own members and from the outside, from community members. You have already done a lot of work at trying to integrate as much as possible. This is an iterative conversation that has to happen in the community, so I'd be fine with if we said, this is our current draft that we're approving, and this is our best work so far. Let it go to the select board and then let them start working it so more people in town can talk about it.
It's also a different platform.
Yeah, it's a bigger platform.
It is, yeah.
Bigger exposure will be covered in the paper, and because our goal, I think, is to, with most of our things, is to try to move. We're supposed to be advocates for systemic change in the community, and having this out there, as well done as it is, knowing there's still going to be need for work on it. Some people aren't going to like that conversation is healthy for the town to have, and I think all we're doing is moving into the next stage. But I've deferred to the rest of the group what they want to do.
I would agree with you.
So would you like to call a vote on this now?
Well, does Aggie and Nancy and her from them, does anything want to say?
June 12th.
Yeah.
Aggie and Nancy, do you have any thoughts on this about moving to vote now versus not?
Well, it sounds like we want to do more work. What would the vote now be doing?
Oh, yeah. How about Agnes? Do you think we should vote on this, or do you think we're not ready? And the vote is not to say it's 100%; it's just to send it to the select board.
Yeah.
For more work.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
When are we ever going to be ready?
Okay, so let me make a motion, and my motion would be that we take the draft of the charge as presented by Andrea today and say this is our current, we're voting at yes or no in our current working draft to pass it to the select board for further exposure and community discussion and revision. That's my motion.
Motion to send this to the
Select board.
For further community input, discussion, and work.
I like that.
I second it.
Then all in favor?
Have to do a roll call.
Roll call.
Joe, yes.
Andrea, yes.
Nancy, yes.
Agnes, yes.
Jimmy, yes.
Rose, yes.
Brian, no.
So can I just question of clarity? Is there anything that, Brian, just so we know, that would make you, what's stopping you from letting, like, what's the trigger that's saying, yeah, I don't think it's ready to even let other people push it forward for a wider discussion?
Because I feel if we're going to just throw this to the lap of the select board, we should be fairly confident that this is what we as a commission wants.
Okay.
But it appears that this is pretty much what the commission wants, so I support it going forward, as a process move.
Yeah.
But I'd like to continue to say that my personal statement is no. I think this has gotten too big, too broad. It did not in the previous versions. Oh, anyway, right. It's not a speech.
That's self-clarification.
Yeah.
So all we did is vote then to move it ahead for more work.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really where the community work can really be more visible, and there can be a lot more voices given the platform that the select board has in terms of both reach and scope, and also ultimately the finalization of any of this. Like we can, and we have a lot of history, right, to support. Like we make recommendations, and ultimately, which actually I do have a data question that I did. Hopefully, if we could just tuck this in, and if you have the new document, great. But based on the research that you did, how many of the municipalities invested in a DEI director?
So of the 104, so there are 351. 104 have some type of DEI, and these vary between commissions, human rights commissions, and DEI directions. I'm not sure, but I can get that number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was curious because in order for any of this
course.
to have legs and momentum, we
Of course.
obviously need, in terms of, as we talk about systemic prioritization and we talk about having things move and be implemented on any level, like, you know, we hopefully can work in partnership with the team and kind of, so, and obviously we have a long history with the town and where that stands, so just wanted to get the data points. So with that,
I can get that number.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And everyone in it.
okay, so I
Before
do,
voting,
yeah.
Brian, I have a question. Are there any specific things you would like to postpone instead of including in this one? I know.
I think we have to send it in
To
its
the
entirety,
boards.
what we just voted on.
Okay.
But I appreciate the question. And I think at some point I can make whatever comments up to this.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but thank you. I was considering.
Okay. So with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting.